Thank you for coming out to South Mountain Community College for our governing board forums. My name is Sherry Olson, and I've been the president here. I'm entering my 6th year, and we have an awesome college, and we have a few employees in the audience, some students in the audience, so we're ready to give you some good questions. Our democracy thrives when we all are engaged in the political process. Tonight, you will learn more about the candidates and where they stand on issues important to the community, the college system, and you. Election day is just around the corner, and it is essential that you have the information you need to cast your ballot. Being here tonight is a great way to do just that. I would now like to introduce Mr. Michael Kelly, who is moderating tonight's event. Michael is the manager of Kelly Consulting Alliance, LLC, a Phoenix-based business consulting firm. He had served 14 years on the board of the Arizona Community Foundation, 6 years on our Maricopa Community Colleges Foundation board, and is now the chair of the Ellis Center for Education Excellence at the Arizona Community Foundation. Mr. Kelly is also a very dear friend of the college. He chairs the South Mountain Community College President's Community Advisory Council, and he was our hero of education last year at the event in November. So I welcome Mr. Kelly, a dear friend and colleague, and a precious resource for our college.
We got 4.
Thank you, Dr. Olson. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. I'm honored to be the moderator for this important panel. We want to thank MCTV for televising this event. So if you were not able to make it here, we encourage you to TiVo or go to the MCCD website and make sure that you get a copy of this special event and also share it with friends. It's now my pleasure to introduce a friend as well. The director of the Center for Civic Participation is a good friend of mine. He's a native-born South Phoenix resident. So he is vested in this community and also this district. He's been called an emerging leader, but based upon the test by fire, he is currently a veteran leader. So it's Lawrence Robinson is the person I'm talking about, and he knows well many of the aspects of this district. After being born and raised here in South Phoenix, he attended Claremont McKenna College in California, where he earned 2 degrees. And they seem to be oxymoronic. It's religious studies and government, right? Please don't take offense. But after his undergraduate studies, Lawrence attended New York University Law School, where he received his Juris Doctorate in Constitutional Law. Now, he's been a staff attorney at the Arizona House of Representatives. He's been a senior policy advisor to Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton. He's a professor at Arizona Summit for Law, and he's a board member of the Roosevelt Elementary School District. So please put your hands together and help me welcome the director for the Center for Civic Participation, Lawrence Robinson. I'm sorry, I should.
Well, good evening. You know it's your friend when they introduce your entire biography. I thank you, Michael. On behalf of the Maricopa Community College District Center for Civic Participation, I welcome you tonight. We are a center housed at the district that serves all of our 10 colleges and our community. What we do is 3-pronged. We promote leadership, we promote service, and we promote dialogue as displayed tonight here by the presence of our candidates for the governing board. We want everyone in the community to know that we're a resource for you. We want to make sure that we understand that the community in the community college district is important. And therefore, promoting democracy and dialogue is what we do, not only as a center, but also as a district. And so we do appreciate everyone coming out tonight. We appreciate all of those who will view later on via the internet. And we most importantly thank everybody who has decided to step up to the plate to run for office, to serve this district, one of the largest and most prestigious community college districts in the nation. It's not easy to be a candidate, but we do commend all of them for running, and we wish them all the best of luck. And with that, I will turn it back over to our moderator, Mr. Kelly. And again, want to thank our staff, Donna Winston, all of those at the district office who made this possible here at South Mountain Community College, MCTV, Dr. Olson, and so forth. So thank you for attending, and let's let the forum proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this event, I just want to make the viewing audience a little bit aware of this process and who the governing board members are. Now, I'm just going to go down the list of current governing board members alphabetically. We have Mr. Doyle Burke, who is a current member. His term expires in December of 2016. Mr. Alfredo Gutierrez, he is currently the president, and he represents District 5, and his term expires December 2016, but he is running unopposed. Now, I just want to give you regrets that Mr. Gutierrez had planned to be here this evening, but he has a family emergency, and we hope that he might be able to make it. If he does not, we wish him the best with that personal situation. Ms. Joanna Haver, she's the secretary from District 3. Her term does not expire until December of 2018. John Heap, who's a member running at large, sends his regrets. He has a conflict and will not be able to attend. His at-large term expires in 2016. Now, you might remember that at-large members serve different terms initially upon election. In 2014, that was something that was added. The candidates receiving the largest number of votes will serve 4 years, and the candidates receiving the next largest number of votes will serve 2 years until we can get the terms to coincide. So subsequently, at-large members will serve 4 years. Now, the next election will be held this November for districts, and District 1, 2, and 5 will be up for election, and I'm going through that process now. Ms. Tracy Livingston, who is an at-large member, her term will not expire until December of 2018. And Jean McGrath, who's a member of District 4, her term doesn't expire until 2018. And Mr. Dana Sarr, who is a member from District 2, his term expires in December of 2016. He is here with us, and he is also running unopposed. So is everybody clear on the membership? All right. So the at-large candidates are John Heap and Linda Thor, and Linda Thor is here, and you'll hear more from her soon. For District 1, the candidates are Dennis Kavanaugh, Lauren Hendricks, and Mr. Hendricks is a candidate, but he has elected not to participate in these events because from his perspective, these events are a conflict of interest, and we honor his perspective. Moses Sanchez is here, and he's a candidate for District 1. And Dana Sarr, as I had mentioned, is a candidate for District 2. And Mr. Alfredo Gutierrez, who is the current president, is a candidate for District 5. All right? Okay. Now, this forum is not a debate. So if you saw the last 3 debates on television, this is not going to be anything like that. And can you imagine at the Alfred Smith civil event in New York City that's going on right now, where those candidates, and I won't mention any names, but the candidates who have been debating vociferously now are sitting side by side and making jokes about one another. So from my perspective, I don't know the difference between the debate and the jokes. You know, I'll leave that up to the voters.
I just got told it got really bad just now.
It's supposed to have gotten bad. So this forum is to educate everybody about our candidates, their background, their perspectives, and we'll be asking them some hard questions related to their candidacy. Now here are the rules and the guidelines. We're going to open up with each candidate having 2 minutes to do a self-introduction, and then what we'll do is I have a couple of questions that have surfaced from my work in the district and have also come to my attention from different community organizations and also my independent research. If you have a question, we ask you to fill out an index card and get those to Donna, and Donna will bring those cards up and we'll have the panelists respond to those index cards and questions from the audience, and audience participation is really important. And if you don't get a chance to participate in this event, we encourage you to go online to the website, and that information has been posted so that you can ask questions. We are also going to have another forum that will take place on the 27th of October, and it will be at Mesa Community College. There was a forum on Monday, co-hosted by Rio Salado Community College and also South Mountain Community College, and that was held at Rio Salado on Monday, and it was a lively and encouraging discussion. So these forums are for your information to assist you in making the important decisions for one of the largest and most progressive community college districts in the United States. Okay? All right. So with that, let me start with asking each of you to take 2 minutes to go ahead and offer your opening comments related to a self-introduction. So we're not going to start in terms of how people are here on the table, but we will start with the at-large candidate who is in attendance, Dr. Linda Thor. Dr. Thor.
Thank you very much, Michael, and I'd like to begin by thanking South Mountain Community College and the Center for Civic Participation for providing us with this opportunity. As Michael indicated, I am running for the at-large or the county-wide seat on the governing board. I have worked in community colleges for 41 years, and for 29 of those years I was a college president or chancellor. I started my career in the Los Angeles Community College District, where I was fortunate to have 5 promotions in the first 12 years that I worked for the district that took me from an entry-level position to the president of West Los Angeles College. In 1990, I moved here to the Valley to become the president of Rio Salado College. And I was privileged to be president of Rio Salado for just under 20 years. In 2010, I returned to California to be the chancellor of the Foothill De Anza Community College District, which serves the Silicon Valley of California. And after 5.5 years of service there, I retired, and we returned to our home here in Phoenix. I have a bachelor's degree in journalism. My master's degree is in public administration, and my doctorate is in community college administration. So I am clearly a community college lover, and I have devoted my entire career to these great institutions, and a large portion of my career to the Maricopa Community Colleges.
Thank you, Dr. Thorne. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much, Michael, for hosting this forum, and thank you to my colleagues who are here tonight. At all the events we've gone to recently, it's been unfailingly positive and enthusiastic, and it's really refreshing to hear this kind of discussion among people who clearly love the community college system. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an attorney in private practice. I've been a practicing attorney since 1978. Had my own firm in the East Valley here for 26 years. I'm probably better known as being in public service. I'm a four-term member of the Mesa City Council, currently vice mayor for the city. I was first elected 20 years ago to the Mesa City Council, and during that time I have had public service both on the local, regional, state, and national levels. I've had a lot of experience working in a governance board. City Council is very much like a governing board for the community college district in terms of setting policy, setting guidance, passing the budget, hiring the chancellor. I know what it means to be an effective member of a governing board. I've been in nonpartisan political office now for 4 terms. I'm a registered independent. I think that boards like us, like this board here, really functions very well with leaving politics in the parking lot. And in terms of community colleges, I've got a very close association with Mesa Community College, which is in my city council district. So I've worked very hard, actually, on the 2004 bond issue for them. I've been on their Commission for Excellence in Education for 20 years, including serving as chair for 2 years. I'm currently on their development committee. And so my work on city council has not just been as a council member, it's been working in higher education as well, and I hope to continue that on the governing board.
Thank you, sir. Moses Sanchez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Mr. Kelly, Mr. Robinson, and Dr. Olson for having this event. My name is Moses Sanchez, and I have 3 amazing children, and I have 3 even more amazing grandchildren. And grandparents understand, what I mean by that. I'm fortunate. In 2012, I was elected to the governing board of the Tempe Union High School District after a tour in Afghanistan. I have been in the Navy for the last 15 years. I got 5 more to go and call it a day. When I got back, I got involved in my children's lives by running for school board at the Tempe Union High School District, which serves the community of Tempe, Ahwatukee, and Chandler, a slice of Chandler, 7 high schools. I've been fortunate to be there for the last 3 years, not only as a governing board member, as the vice president of the board, and as the president of the board, and it has been a blessing. In 2013, not only was I able to hand my daughter her high school diploma, but in 2015, when I was the governing board president, I was able to hand my son his high school diploma and sign it. And it's been an amazing journey on that board. I've decided this year, this is my last year on the board, that I would move on to other challenges. I'm very passionate about community colleges. It's where I got my start. Right out of active duty Navy service, I went right into the community college system. It's where my wife got her start. And I'm actually a teacher right here at South Mountain Community College. Proud Cougar. I've been here for over 7 years now. And colleges, community colleges, I'm real passionate about. I'm passionate about education. I've been fighting and championing education in my district, in our community, for the last 10 years now, and I look forward to championing education here at the Maricopa County Community College District.
Thank you. Mr. Starr.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you who are participating tonight, those at South Mountain in the district office. Mr. Kelly, this is my 20th year as a board member. First 14 of those were as a K-12 board member as Moses in the Fountain Hills Unified School District. I was president of that board for a few years. And the last 6 here at Maricopa County Community College District. I served as chair of the board 1 year. I was also on the National Association of Community College Trustees board for a year. So I've become quite empowered in my own mind with what we do here at Maricopa. But I also realize that there are 10,000 employees, there are 200,000 plus students, and a 4.5 million population here in Maricopa County that we are responsible to. I take that very seriously, and I look forward to another 4 years. It's very nice not to be opposed. People are calling me to find out why I'm not on the ballot, and that's a good thing. So I look forward to another 4 years of doing what I've been doing. My master's degree is in a career and technical education, and I'm passionate about the workforce development in our district, as most of those in administration know. We also know that there are a large group of students out there, or potential students, especially here in the South Mountain area, who we call disconnected. They are simply unemployed and uneducated and struggle day to day. And we want to make sure that our doors are open to that demographic, to bring those students from being somewhat of a burden to the taxpayers and the residents of Maricopa County and get them into a position where they're able to maintain their family and do what we all want to do for our own lives and for the communities we live in. So I look forward to the next 4 years and look forward to the rest of this discussion.
Thank you very much, Dana. Much appreciated for your time and talent. Let's give these dynamic people a round of applause to show your appreciation for their time and also talent. Now, 3 years ago, I met with every community college president in the district. And also Dr. G, who is Dr. Giovannini, who also heads up the corporate college, and we discussed declining enrollments. FTSE, many of you know that, I'll define it in a moment, but that stands for full-time equivalent student enrollment, and how to address these issues. Almost to a person, each of the college presidents, with the exception of Rio Salado, they shared that being able to level the playing field to monetize MOOCs, so you're learning new terms, FTSE and MOOCs, and MOOCs stand for Massive Online Credit Units, would help to solve the budgeting problem. Now let me define full-time equivalent student enrollment, and then I'll ask the question of each of the panelists, and Mr. Saar, we'll start with you. The FTSE is a measure of instructional workload used for Maricopa Community College budgeting, facilities, planning, and local resource allocation decisions. So full-time equivalent student enrollment is a statement about how many students taking full-time study loads would generate a given number of measured or anticipated student credit hours, okay? So I just wanted to define that. Here's the question. What is your long-term strategy to address declining enrollments and to develop a plan for success and sustainability? Dana Saar.
Thank you. Good question. We have experienced, since I've been on the board 6 years ago, tremendous growth through the enrollment process because of the recession that we had back in the 2008, 2009 area. And most of those students who came to us at that time have reached their goals of either getting the job that they had before or getting a job that that meets their needs for their families that maybe didn't exist when they first started in their career. So even though we're seeing a drop of enrollment, it's not that we're not doing a job, it's that that's the demographic area that we live in. We also know that FTSE was used to determine how much state aid we were getting years ago. We had as much as 25% of our total budget coming from the state of Arizona. Today that's 0. So we've been able to maneuver our budget to make sure that we can still provide the services we have always provided with a limited state aid of 0. We really were able to survive with a $60 million a year shortfall from the state. But when it comes to technology, our students today are different than it was when I was in school. You know, we're walking around with these and live and die with them. Texting on the road is the dying side. But we also realize that online learning works. Rio Salado is a testament to that. Dr. Thor is responsible for a good part of their success. But we know that not everybody survives in that environment. I was one of those. So we are never going to abandon our brick and mortar classes, but we do need to make sure that we meet the needs of students today and not those of us from years past. I think that MOOCs and other types of online services are something we always have to keep our eyes on, but we have to make sure that we're finding from our students what their needs are and their learning styles. So I look forward to that as well as many other decisions that we make.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, declining enrollment is something that that not only did the community college see, but we actually see this in a lot of the school districts throughout the state. We just have less population. We just have less students out there. We witnessed this at the Tempe Union High School District. In the district, students throughout the recession dropped significantly. However, our school district was able to not only maintain our enrollment, but increase it. And we were able to do that by highlighting a lot of our programs, our special programs, and going outside the district. We were able to bring in students from as far as Peoria, all the way out to Ahwatukee. And highlighting our programs and reaching out to the business community and sharing these programs, it was really a marketing effort, so to speak, but it was creative, outside-the-box thinking. It wasn't just, what are we going to do? We can't do anything about it. No, reaching out and highlighting these programs was critical for us to bring in these students. Today, some of our schools, I point out to Mountain Point High School. Mountain Point High is got 2,600 students. Mountain Point High also has 48% out-of-district students. 48%. That's almost half the students are coming from outside the district. I have parents who sometimes say, why do we allow open enrollment? Why do we have so many students coming into that school? Mountain Point is an A school, not just academically, but athletically. And you know what? If we didn't allow those students, if we didn't reach out and get those students and bring them into other district, we might end up having to close one of those high schools. So being creative, thinking outside the box, I think is a couple of things that we could do at the community college, working with the business community to bring outside students into the district.
Great, thank you very much. Linda.
Thank you, Michael. I'd love to talk about MOOCs at length, but I see that we're being timed over here, so I'll address enrollment. Why we have declining enrollment is really a very complex issue, having to do, as Moses indicated, with the number of young people coming out of high school. It also is impacted by unemployment. As employment goes up, enrollment typically goes down. It definitely is impacted by the amount of revenue that we have. The colleges can only offer the number of courses and services that their budget will allow. And it is impacted by competition. And clearly, in the last few years, there's been a dramatic increase in the competition for college students in the Valley, not only through online learning, but through the dramatic growth of Grand Canyon University and other independent universities that have entered the Valley's market. The role of the governing board is to set policy and also to monitor the strategic plan and the goals that have been set. So it's not the role of the board to tell the colleges how to increase enrollment, but it is the responsibility of the board to make sure that the colleges are able to be innovative and try new things and not have their heads chopped off if they take a risk and it doesn't work. So the board needs to ask the questions, are we serving all segments of our community, and what can we do to get out of the way so that the colleges can meet the needs in new and creative ways?
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Well, thank you. I think the candidates have said well. The issues really that we face, not only here in Arizona, but around the country, it really, what's the old phrase? It's the economy, stupid. And it really is when the economy improves, the enrollment will decline. Also, birth rates, demographics in Arizona can affect enrollment. But really, clearly, the competition, particularly from Grand Canyon, is dramatic. We look at the marketing budget here, which is about $6 million, and Grand Canyon spends about $63 million a year in marketing, and they've branded themselves, and that has been a big elephant in the market to deal with. I think one of the other issues, though, that the college is making good progress on is trying to remove or reduce barriers to enrollment, common registration to be able to take classes at any of the colleges. We're continuing to look at what are reasons for students dropping out or failing to enroll. That's where I think there's a need to engage the communities, the support organizations to help minimize those barriers to either enrolling or once they enroll to stay in school. And as Linda said, you know, each of the individual colleges does need to be empowered to try innovative things, not be afraid to do it. I think the board can work on setting metrics for success in terms of allocating resources, but this is an issue I think that will never go away in higher education. Enrollment will continue to bedevil governing boards for the next 1,000 years.
Thank you, sir. Now, stand by. We're going to start with you, Mr. Kavanaugh, coming this way. There was a question asked by Todd Saunders, who is the CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, and I think it's an important question to add on to this discussion. Mr. Saunders asked the question, would you ask the legislature to restore funding? Now, you heard from Mr. Saar that we have gone from a certain percentage over the years to zero funding from the state legislature. So we'll give each of you some time to address that important question. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. This is a critical issue. The decision by the legislature to disinvest in community colleges in Pima and Maricopa County was clearly one of the worst decisions made in the last decade by Arizona leaders. And I think the business community gets it now. They're a little slow on getting on board, but the business community, the labor community, the city elected officials, we understand the importance of community colleges to our economy in Maricopa County, the quality of life. And I think it is time to demand that question be posed to candidates running for the legislature and to the governor to look at what can we do to reinvest in the community college system. This should be a priority for every elected official in Arizona. And as much as people want to wish it away by trying to take it out of the statutes, the need is still there. And I think there's a great opportunity, as we've seen earlier this year with different groups coming together for higher education, as Mr. Sanchez has been a champion of. That provides an example of building coalitions to influence decision makers and make sure and hold them accountable to answer, to see how can we work to restore the funding.
Thank you. Dr. Thor.
I believe that the legislature must be held accountable for disinvesting in the workhorse of higher education. I think that they were penny wise and pound foolish in crippling this premier college district. And I would advocate personally and certainly would hope that the entire governing board of the Maricopa Community Colleges will work with the community and with the legislature for the restoration of funding. As Dennis has indicated, as I have been out on the campaign trail and have met many, many people who are running currently for the legislature as well as countywide and statewide offices, they all are recognizing what a mistake this was. And I think that the time has come to build a coalition to restore funding to the community colleges.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, I was part of the team that not only helped propagate Prop 123, but helped create it. And you want to talk about an interesting coalition. That was a coalition that I don't think has ever been seen before in Arizona. And that was a coalition of just such a diverse number of groups that came together for a common cause. Now, it wasn't perfect, and there's a lot more that needs to be done. But I was really proud, and I remember talking about how can we keep this coalition, the same coalition for Prop 123 together for future, for the current, for this year, for the next year. And we had mutual agreement that we were going to work on it. Right now, education is top of mind. People are talking about it more now than they ever have. And we're finally getting legislators who support it. And I agree, we need to hold the legislators accountable for it, especially the ones who slash and burn a lot of our funding. I will always champion education funding here in our state. I did it my first year in office. I went to the legislature and fought for CTE and JTED dollars, and guess what? We didn't get it. But I went back the following year and did it again. And in our district, we didn't get it. Our third year this year, we finally got some JTED funding out of it. It wasn't a lot, but it's a move in the right direction, and I will continue to fight and continue to champion more funding for our schools.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saar.
Well, certainly, since we are the only state out of 50 that are defunding our post-secondary education, whether it's the community colleges or the four-year universities, it's a disgrace to our students and to the community we serve. We need to continue to lobby the legislature and the governor to get our funding restored. But in the meantime, that's not going to happen overnight. In the meantime, we need to also ask them for the ability to spend what we actually earn. And we need to earn things in different ways than just through tax dollars and tuition, as it is currently the case. Entrepreneurialism is thriving within our district. We've done some things here that are looked at nationwide that give us the opportunity to take advantage of entrepreneurs that are out there that we've helped get to their success. But we are under the state constitution when it comes to an expenditure control limit. We can only spend so much. It's based on FTSE. So we got some leeway in that last year in that session. We plan to go back to the legislature this year to ask for more abilities in that regard. It does take a change in the Constitution to really get out from under that burden, and it's something that we need to address, not just let it ride, because it is difficult to change our Constitution. But it can be done. We did it last year with Prop 123, and we need to always look for other options besides the taxpayer dollars. But on the other hand, an investment of $1 in our district over the last several years has returned over $4 to our economy. As bad as our economy is nationwide, and especially here in Arizona, that $4 return on investment is huge, and we need to continue that.
Thank you very much. Now, I remember, Dr. Thor, you had mentioned that the community college system, and this is not a dig, this is just reality based upon the education type of system, the educational programs in the state of Arizona, is that the community college system has become a training facility for people who need remedial education. You know, could you talk about that a little bit?
And this is a problem not just here in Maricopa County. It's really a problem nationwide. And that is that typically between 60 and 70% of the students who enter the community college need at least one developmental or remedial education course in math, writing, English, in order for them to then be successful in college level courses. One might conclude that particularly here in Arizona, that the dramatic underfunding of the K-12 system might have some impact on the number of students who need remedial education when they get to us. But we also have to recognize that we don't enroll simply 18 and 19-year-olds right out of high school, that the average age of students in the community college is in their late 20s. And most people in this room probably would not pass the math placement test if you were given it right now. So the community colleges, of course, have a multifaceted, comprehensive mission, and developmental or remedial education is an extremely important part of that mission, along with university transfer and career technical education and other functions.
Thank you for that highlight. Would anyone else like to add anything? Feel free to. Mr. Saar, and then Mr. Sanchez.
Well, developmental education is one of our 4 top priorities as a board and as a district. We know it's expensive, but we know that it is the way that our society has gotten to. It doesn't take away from the fact that people are capable of doing work at a college level. It's just that they haven't done it for a while. I'm going to guess that many of you have not written a term paper for many years. And to sit down in your first crack at a class and start writing a term paper at the level of freshman in college is not easy for most people entering our colleges, whether you're a freshman out of high school, freshman coming out of high school, or whether you're coming back for a welding program after you've hit your 50th birthday because that's something you want to do. So we know we have a lot of challenges in developmental ed, and I have to give credit to South Mountain, especially for the work that they're doing for developmental ed students. They're doing the better of the work in the district. So it can be done. We're focused on that. We want to make sure that every individual who comes to us ends up being successful and meets the goals that they have set for themselves.
Thank you. Moses.
Yes, I see this in my classroom where you have a wide variety of students, some that their basic skills are much lower than others, and some that have more advanced skills. And as a faculty member, it's a challenge. I see this at the school district that I currently work at. We have different schools use different practices to bring their students up to that level, specifically their freshman year. The freshman year at the high school level is so critical. So I would venture to say that the 101 courses are probably the most critical time to bring our students up to that level. And there's different practices that could be used, perhaps putting premier practitioners in the 101 courses versus the 102 and the 201 courses. Whether it's more time, we have some schools in our school district that students use their academic lab. Those schools use academic lab for different purposes to bring the remedial students back up. And in other schools like Tempe High, where you have 70% Hispanic population, the key for them is to make sure that you have the right teacher in those classrooms. And that relationship really is built between the principal, say, the department head at the community college level, and the faculty members or the teachers at the high school level. I could see a system like that being put in place or being advocated for at the community college to maybe perhaps fix some of those problems.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. This question really illustrates a critical juncture where the district is at. Two of the candidates who are not here tonight have a slogan of lower taxes, lower tuition. And when asked, well, how are you going to accomplish that, they seem to be pointing their fingers at the developmental education program. And that's wrong. And that's why I think you need to look to candidates who support the developmental education program. It's really critical for students of all ages, and I think it's an essential program for the college district, and we have to maintain and improve it, not get rid of it.
Thank you. Okay, there are a few tough questions, additional tough questions, and some controversial. But let me start with this one, and then we'll move on to a couple of others. And as I'd mentioned, they're controversial, but I don't see anything immoral or illegal. So, as a former vested member of the Maricopa Community College District Foundation, I stay informed about student, faculty, and staff concerns within the district. Recently, an affinity group, which is the African American affinity group that are the black employees here at the college, they met with the chancellor to voice their concerns about efforts to compress the 10 colleges to 5 and the lack of an African American college president since Dr. Ken Atwater, who was here, and also Arnett Ward, who was at Chandler Gilbert. Do you share MECBA's concerns, and what will you do to ensure hiring diversity in the Maricopa County Community College system? And we'll start with you, Dr. Thor.
I'm not a sitting board member, so I have not had the briefing on why the chancellor is proposing to go in this direction. nor do I know how sitting board members feel about this topic. However, having been a college president for 29 years, I cannot conceive of one president being responsible for 2 colleges and being able to do that well. If this is being done in order to save money, I question how much will really be saved, because you do have to have someone in charge at the college on a day-to-day basis. So if the president is trying to cover 2 colleges and raise money in the community and be on Chamber of Commerce boards and speaking to Rotaries and so on, they're going to have to designate an executive vice president or a provost or someone like that, and they're going to have to be paid more. So I really need to understand how the finances of this work. And also, what concerns me is faculty and staff already think presidents are not visible enough on their campuses. They're not present enough on their campus. And you take and spread them across 2 campuses, you're going to have a lot of unhappy people. So it would take a lot of persuading for me, having been a president, to accept that one president can adequately and effectively serve 2 large colleges.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, it's fascinating that there are members in our community that don't want to talk about diversity. When you say it's controversial or the situation is controversial, I don't know, maybe I don't see it as being controversial. It's important. Diversity is critical, and it's important. When I ran for school board 4 years ago now, one of my platforms was diversity, bringing in more diversity to the district, and not just at the faculty level, but at the staff level and the administration level. And let me tell you, excuse me, I am proud. It was one of my most proudest moments, easily one of the top 5 most proudest moments as a governing board member. Last night, we had a board meeting, and last night, we voted 5-0 for the superintendent's 4th quarter goal to approve a diversity inclusion plan. It's the first time it's happened in our district. It was critical. We see this with, we had a situation earlier this year, January 22nd. You'll know why, I remember that date. Over at Desert Vista, where young ladies had shirts and certain letters written across them that went nationwide and went around the world. And the first question the media asked was, do you have a diversity coordinator? Who do you have in charge there? And we did not. Today we do. Diversity is critical, it's important, it's something that I advocate for, and something that I'll continue to advocate for.
Thank you. Mr. Saar.
Well, two parts to that question. The first one, in terms of the reorganization, that's a work in progress. Has been for a while. Our goal is to try and move as much of the resources we currently have down into the front lines of our organization, the classrooms, the support staff, and we do that by making sure that we're utilizing our upper areas of our employment as best as we can, whether that's combining colleges, whether that is moving descriptions of jobs differently than they currently exist now. Those are under advisement. The board is encouraging whatever it takes through entrepreneurship to get more funding and resources into those frontline people and classrooms. Second question regarding diversity. It is important to us. Whether it's at the presidential level or any other level is important, but where we need it the most is in the classroom, to make sure that the individuals in the classroom can relate to the faculty members sitting or standing in front of them. That has been proven through studies for decades that it improves the performance of students when they can connect positively, whether it's economic or whether it's has to do with your nationality or culture. We need to make sure that we're putting the right people in front of our students. That is simply the right thing to do, and it's been on our books for a long time. We still need to work on it. We need to encourage minorities to get into the education field, to become community college faculty, it's more than just a degree. It requires some experience, and getting that usually comes from the K-12 world, which pays nothing. So we have to make sure that whatever we can do to help those individuals that want to become classroom faculty, to realize that as time goes on, it is an outstanding profession and one that will take you and your family through your career.
Thank you. Counselor.
Well, as Dr. Thor said, I'm not privy to the information the Chancellor has or the current governing board has on this question. But I will tell you, when I heard about it, my yellow warning flags flew out all over, because there are many aspects of the One Maricopa project that are very positive in terms of centralizing resources. But one of the things I don't want us to lose is the connection to the communities in which our colleges live. And because they're living, breathing entities that are essential partners to communities. And the idea of one president, two colleges really is, I think it's a step backwards. If it's to save money, I think there are better ways that we can save money. Now, in terms of diversity, over the past 20 years, I've helped hire 3 city managers, 6 police chiefs, 3 fire chiefs, and dozens of department heads. And I'm currently the chair of the search committee for Valley Metro CEO. Believe me, I know the challenge in hiring executives in positions like this, but diversity has to be front and center, because public institutions have to look like the communities that they represent. And if that's not a factor, then that's wrong.
Thank you. We're going to start with you, Mr. Saar, with this question. What are your thoughts about transgender bathrooms?
Well, that's not new to us. We've had these issues in the past. And fortunately, we've had restroom facilities for parents with students that are gender neutral in most of our facilities. Not everyone, by any means. But we have made those restroom facilities available to anyone who feels they need them. It hasn't been a problem, quite frankly, that we're aware of in any great extent, but we know that it is an issue. Our transgender students, as any others that feel that there's some uniquenesses in their lives, are just as important to us as anybody else. So we always, as a board, as an administration, as a district, are open to listening to the needs and doing whatever we can to make sure those needs don't get in the way of a good education and a good future for our students.
Thank you. Moses.
Yeah, we were fortunate at the Tempe Union High School District to have the similar situation where it wasn't an issue for us, because we did have gender-neutral facilities on campus. It's not something that we ever had to change in our district. It's something that we are fortunate we had the right staff to foresee that. We've always had, and it's not just gender neutral for the different genders, it's for folks who have special medical needs, special medical situations where they need to use a different restroom for privacy purposes. And so I haven't heard of any situations or any problems while I've been on this campus as a faculty member, and I don't have a problem with having those gender neutral facilities.
Okay.
I would concur with both Dana and Moses. This should be a non-issue on community college campuses. We're very inclusive. We value diversity of all kinds. And as Moses indicated, there's reasons to have gender-neutral bathrooms or family-friendly bathrooms or whatever they're going to be labeled, not just for transgendered students, but for nursing mothers and all kinds of others. And for the additional funds that would be required if we still need to add other gender-neutral bathrooms, it's something that we certainly should do. It's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
And I agree with my colleagues. This shouldn't be an issue. This shouldn't be an issue. We need to treat people fairly, and we're a progressive community college district, and we act like that. And so we shouldn't let the sound and fury of headlines deter us from doing that.
And we're going to stay right there with you, Mr. Kavanaugh, for the next question. And it's kind of in similar, vein. What are your thoughts about Planned Parenthood on campuses?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Yes, sir. Doctor.
My last job, as I mentioned, was as chancellor of the Foothill De Anza Community College District. Planned Parenthood runs the health offices on those campuses and does a fabulous job. And the students value the services that they are providing.
All right. Moses.
I would view Planned Parenthood like any other group or organization that wants to promote a cause or provide a purpose or a service on campus. Actually, it's funny, I asked my students just last week what group or organization has caused them the most grief while they've been here this semester, and one student jumped at that, and he just said, I'm sick and tired of being asked, are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? So no, I don't have a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not heard of any problem in that regard. It's like any other organization that wants to participate in the educational process. We not only educate for academic purposes, but social, spiritual, and others. And I think we need to be open to all those different services that our students could use.
All right, thank you. And we'll keep it right there with you, sir. Let's see. These are audience questions that I'm sharing with you at this point. Some of your answers have responded to them, others have not. Let's see. The current MCCD governing board placed a challenge to the new chancellor to gain efficiency in operations. How would you define the tasks necessary to complete this objective? Mr. Saar.
Well, we've always looked at becoming more efficient, more effective in what we do, our mission. And the chancellor works with 4 outcomes that we've put in front of her. They are transfers to the university 4-year programs, workforce development, developmental education, and civic and global engagement. Those are 4 outcomes that we hold the chancellor accountable to. But what we really also have established are the limitations within which she works, and everybody that works for the district as well. Those limitations, there's 14 or 15 of them, are very common. We just want to make sure that we don't do anything that's unprofessional, immoral, illegal, and so forth. So when it comes to becoming more efficient, that is always on our list of things to do. We have to. We don't have the money and the resources that we've had in the past years. We have to do a lot more with what we have, and becoming more efficient no matter what that takes. And that's the chancellor's responsibility to make those decisions are what we're going to hold her accountable to.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
I would ask the experts on what they would consider the proper metric to measure that efficiency. I mean, if you're talking about efficiency in plant operations, ask the plant operations staff to show us before, after, what it takes to be more efficient. How do we cut costs there? How would they do it? How would they address the problem? It's interesting when you ask people who are experts in the field how they can improve, they usually tell you. All they need is the right support, they need people to ask. Often we don't ask. Instead, we think that we are the experts and that we know everything and that we're going to tell you and dictate how to do it. At least this is how we do it at the Tempe Union High School District. At the Tempe Union High School District, I ask a lot more questions than I share information. And asking those questions is critical to finding out the answers to a lot of these questions when it comes to efficiency.
Dr. Thorpe.
This question really relates to the whole One Maricopa initiative. And I think there are aspects of the One Maricopa movement that make a lot of sense when they are dealing with improving efficiency and cost effectiveness. But I think we also have to ask the question of, is this in the best interest of students? How does this benefit students? The Maricopa colleges comprise a very large and complex district with innumerable processes. And I think we have to be careful that we don't put our focus in the wrong places, that we're not spending a lot of time on initiatives that don't produce a lot of gain for us and that don't impact students in a positive way. So yes, we need to be looking at efficiency and cost effectiveness, but always with the eye on how does this benefit students.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I would look at this as I do any public policy question that I've directed to department heads that I work with. It's really 4 simple questions with an initiative. Who's it going to help? Who's it going to hurt? How much is it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? And your chancellor, your presidents, your department heads, they have to be able to answer those questions. They have to be engaged and invested in those questions. It's like in public safety, we have what's called the CompStat method, where every day, every shift, we analyze the needs and the resources that we have to move around to address criminal trends and activities. Well, we created something that's more like CityStat, again, where individual department heads have to come together and meet and stand up in front of everyone else and be accountable for the initiatives they've been working on. But I think you just have to communicate it clearly and make people understand that there is accountability. It's public accountability. It's not private.
Mr. Kavanaugh, here's kind of a lengthy question from the audience, but also an important one. This is the only country where a person who speaks only one language is considered educated. We offer no certification to prove that someone is literate in another language, especially Spanish. As a result, we get embarrassing and insulting translations. I have been begging for language certifications for more than 30 years. Will you help me make it happen?
Well, I sure hope so, because you hear that from the business community every day. I mean, our competitors around the world are multilingual and illiterate and multiliterate in different languages. I have a council colleague who speaks 3 different languages, and he happens to help teach at one of the community colleges. But no, I think that is critically important. As a public entity such as a city or county or state, we have to recognize the diversity of language and backgrounds that people have, and faulty translations can lead to big problems. And so I think that's a great suggestion.
Thank you. Dr. Thor.
I'm having a humbling experience this year because I have an 18-year-old from Sweden that is living with us while she does her senior year at Mountain Point High School. She speaks perfect English, which she began learning in the 2nd grade in Sweden, and she's currently working on her 3rd language, speaking Spanish. So clearly, human beings are capable of being fluent in more than one language by young adulthood. Spanish was my minor, so I value learning an additional language. But that said, we have to recognize that the curriculum is the purview of the faculty. Mm-hmm. And so the faculty would need to be involved in the decision of having a foreign language requirement. But also we have to recognize that the universities that our students will transfer to have a role here as well, because we know students don't do optional. So if their goal is to transfer to the university and the university is not requiring the foreign language, they're not going to do it. So it's a matter of board policy, but also the guidance and the wisdom of the faculty, and an understanding of who's going to be receiving these students, and will they value that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
Jag talar lite svenska. I speak a little Swedish, and I'm an immigrant, believe it or not. English is my 2nd language. Spanish is my 1st language. 我也可以说普通话。我的发音不太好，可是我很喜欢普通话。I speak Chinese as well, Mandarin. The Navy sent me when I was active duty to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, DLI, where I learned to speak, read, and write Chinese. I will absolutely help somebody who's trying to promote a certification in a language. It's critical. I know we have this already in the courts, but I would love to have a certification at the colleges or at the universities. Right now, you can graduate. My daughter was minoring in Chinese, and then she stopped. But you can graduate with a degree in one of these languages and still not be proficient. In the Navy, we actually have a proficiency exam for it. And we're fortunate that currently, right now, we have what we call NEC codes, which are just codes that says you're capable of doing it. It would be like a certification. And if you're capable of speaking that language, you have that code. Whatever language it may be, it could be Persian Farsi, it could be Arabic, it could be Chinese, it could be Spanish. But these certifications are critical and they're very useful. I always advocate students in my class, macro and microeconomics, a lot of entrepreneurs, the Center for Entrepreneurship, to go out and learn another language. You need to. It's critical, it's very useful, and it makes you stand out when it comes to employment.
Miha.
Okay.
That's the only word I know.
No, I grew up in northern Wisconsin where we had, in our high school of 350 people, there were almost 30 first languages spoken at home. Here in Maricopa, we have between 50 and 100 first languages and dialects that we deal with every day. And not always perfectly, by any means. Obviously, the Hispanic and Latinos languages are not even always the same in dialect. So it's a difficult thing to be able to accommodate the needs of everybody, but I fully support the fact that we live in a global society, whether you like it or not. We do. We have one of our 4 outcomes that is focused on making sure that our students understand world economics as opposed to just the United States or Maricopa counties. It is important. Whether it's a certification, we are a well-established bureaucracy here at Maricopa. That's been well documented, and to add any more is always going to come up with some resistance, especially from those of us that have long since lost our ability to learn, like those that are in 5th and 6th grade, where languages are very easy to teach. I'm gradually learning some language like Spanish only because I travel in those areas that speak Spanish. So whether it's a certification, I'd like to study that some more, but I do feel that that is a need that we need to address.
Thank you. Stay right there, Mr. Saar. This is obviously written by someone with a graduate degree. All of you have many years of experience in your various roles and careers. What will you do to ensure your knowledge transfer in support of professional growth and development, i.e. mentoring of the next generation of governing board members?
Good question. I was a faculty member at EVIT in the East Valley for a couple of years, and then was an assistant principal for a few more. And I've also always been involved in education, from the fact that my mom was a home ec teacher, if you know what home ec used to be. So it's been part of my life. And mentoring has been part of my business acumen because I own my own businesses for many years, and mentoring employees is what you do when you own your own business. I think that my background proves that I was ADD in high school and in elementary school. I've never lost it. I'm good for 5 years at just about anything, and that's about all. I like diversity of my career. So being able to take to this position my experience in so many different areas, to me is an asset that I bring to the district. Some people may say that I should be meddling into some of those things that I've had experience in. Well, I'm not telling you how to do, I'm just giving you my thoughts. And I continue to do that because I think all of us bring things to the board that are important to the future of our district.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, in the Navy, in the reserves, we stay with a unit 3 to 5 years, and then we are forced to transfer to a different unit. We can't stay with the same unit because of personal growth. Moving to other units is critical and it's important. And if you stay with the same unit for longer than 5 years, it reflects poorly on your evaluations. So we create succession programs and succession plans. Those succession plans are what allow for us to move to other units while having continued success, continued mission success for that specific unit. And every unit has a different mission. So it's important. Mentorship programs, I've run them within my individual units. We call it INDOC training. My son went through this as a junior sailor. He joined the reserves. He's been in the Navy now for a year. He's in the reserves, and he's currently enrolled at MCC. But he had to go through INDOC, which was a rigorous course, to learn what to expect out of the Navy. Left seat, right seat. I know I'm using a lot of military terms, but those terms are important. We use left seat, right seat in combat situations. When we get new recruits coming in to Afghanistan, to Iraq, left seat, right seat is critical. Now, I'm not equating the board to a war zone, but a lot of the things we've learned on how to successfully change leadership, we've learned in those zones, we can implement here in the school district.
Thank you. Dr. Thor.
I was the beneficiary of mentoring, and there's no doubt in my mind that I would not have become a college president except for some very important mentoring from the chancellor of the Los Angeles Community College District. So I have always felt obligated to return to the universe the support that I was given. In most of the years that I was president of Rio Salado College, I taught for Northern Arizona University, both in the master's degree in educational leadership and in the doctoral program, and several of my former students are in the room. And certainly in this district, and I'm very proud of that. And even now, having retired as a president and chancellor, I am still actively involved with the Executive Leadership Institute for the League for Innovation in the Community College in facilitating the preparation of future college presidents. But I believe the question specifically asked about mentoring new and future governing board members. And I think that a responsibility of the governing board should be to encourage talented people in the community to consider running for our governing board and giving them opportunities to get involved with the colleges, whether it's on advisory committees, serving on the foundation board, becoming involved in president's advisory councils, those kinds of things. So we shouldn't leave the governance of the colleges to chance. We need to be actively involved in identifying and preparing the next generation of governing board members.
Thank you.
That's a great question. I got my start in public service by going through the Mesa Leadership Program back in 1984-85 because people recruited me to get into that program. And since that time, I've probably been on 40 boards over the years, public and private. And the mentoring and training of board members is critical. For many years, I served on faculty for the Arizona League of Cities and Towns, trying to teach new elected officials the ropes and how to behave. And sad to say, some of my students failed, and they're in the legislature now, and you can see that. But really, it's a question of helping new board members understand the culture of the organization and how to work in a small group of dynamics. Because to get something done on the governing board, you need 3 other people to agree with you. Hopefully, you'd like to get a consensus, but I think you can be a mentor in telling people, don't come in thinking you know everything about everything. You can learn, there's something new to learn every day, and that listening is very important. And don't speak, just repeat what everyone else has said or grandstand. And those simple techniques can really help you no matter what board you're on, but it really is critical for a governing board like this or a city council or some other kind of board is don't let your rookies flounder, because that detracts from positive policy governance.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'm going to pose two more questions. Any of the questions that we didn't get to specifically, I thought that some of their answers did encompass some of the questions. But Donna, I'll impose upon you to go ahead and Tessa to type these questions up and post them, if you would. That would be great and a great service to our folks. So, Dr. Thor, the next question I'll submit to you. Now, I know from our last discussion that not everything in this question is totally accurate, but I want to represent you know, the gist of what people are talking about, because folks talked a lot about at the last forum about enrollment and in good times and bad times. So the question is, since forever, when our economy is good, our enrollment goes down. I have never seen evidence of planning for this, and we always go into crisis mode. If our potential students are working, why aren't we offering more classes at the workplace?
I love that question. I didn't share when I talked about my background that prior to becoming a college president of West Los Angeles College, I was the senior director of occupational and technical education for the Los Angeles Community College District. This would be the early 80s, 1980 to 1986. And I had the privilege of establishing for the 9-college LA district their worksite training program. And know that that can be an extremely effective way of delivering community college education, whether it's during the regular workday or before, during lunchtime, or afterwards, and certainly feel that we could do much more. But there are other things along that lines that I would really encourage the colleges to do, and that's more short-term academies, boot camps, looking at competency-based certificates and degrees, more prior learning assessment that recognizes learning that has already taken place, whether it be in the military or in the workplace. So I would agree that we know that there is this cycle, that we don't prepare for it as well as we should, but I also like the idea of having it in place during good times and bad times.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
No, I agree. I was just laughing. I have a lot of friends who are going through an MBA program at Benedictine right now, and they've designed it really for people who work. They've made it affordable, but the cohorts of the classes really recognize that people do have other lives and time and are working. And I think that's the sort of thing we need to be creative in looking at, not necessarily your traditional course that's over a semester, to vary the times and options available for people to, again, reduce barriers to enrolling in classes or staying in classes. And again, that's true whether it's in good times or bad, because again, you help build your brand, and those people will tell their friends as well to come, hey, I had a great experience, I went through this, it was a 3-week intensive program, but I got my certification at the end of it. Employers will like that too, because they always want those certificated employees back sooner than later, but that's a sort of, at least, approach that you can take.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
I think the business community being cooperative in this would be critical, would be very important. And let me give you a perfect example. And employers would have to advocate this. And we can get them to advocate this. When I served in Afghanistan in 2011, I have a master's degree. I mean, what's next? A doctorate degree, obviously, but I'm not gonna get a doctorate degree while I'm serving overseas. Our employers in the military give us one low battle day, which is like a day off, and during that low battle day, you can watch TV all day, binge watch, catch up on your laundry, write letters, but you know what they advocated? go online and take a course. This is what the military was advocating. So what did I do? I took an Excel course, a basic Excel course right here at the community college from overseas. When the employers advocate it, and by the way, not only do they advocate it for their benefit, but it's beneficial to us as an employee. It actually reflects positively in our evaluations. And that's why it's important to get that business community to buy in. If you're already working somewhere and your employer says, hey, I want you guys, or I think it'd be beneficial for you guys to take this basic course right here. It's good for our good for the actual company, good for our community, and you know what? We're willing to pay for it, and it's going to reflect well on your evaluation. I think a lot of employees would buy into that. So employers advocating education and building that cooperation, I think would be a good start.
Thank you. Only in the military would they call something a low battle day, right? I see a low battle day when I only have to play Magic Pony with my granddaughter. You know, Mr. Saar.
I forgot the question, no, I'm kidding. You know, we can get very comfortable with what we do, especially what we do well. But that doesn't preclude our need to think outside the box, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all Maricopans, whether they're businesses or individuals. Several years ago, we formed the Corporate College, which is a non-credit-bearing institution that meets those needs of business and the employees of those businesses to make sure that they're able to meet the needs that they have in their company. We kind of run up against some of our accreditation issues sometimes, but we've learned in the last few years that those are not as important as the needs of our support that we have here in Maricopa County. And it's working nationwide. So we do have programs that go into the corporate entities to train specific programs that businesses need, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's the aerospace industry, whether it's the service industries, whether it's learning Excel and Word and any other new software that comes down the pike. Obviously, right now, the ability to utilize social media in the marketing is becoming a huge factor in business, and we have to be ready to take care of those needs educationally because, quite frankly, the community colleges are in the space that actually takes place. So we need to make sure that we occupy that space effectively.
Thank you. Well, we'll stay right there, Mr. Saar. We've got one more key question, and then I'm going to have kind of a lightning round of some fun questions. Todd Saunders did that, and I thought it was pretty cool. It'll give you some indication of the human side of governing board members, and not just the administrative and management side. But the last, and then following the fun questions, what we'll do is we'll have 2 minutes for each candidate to offer closing remarks, and then we'll move toward wrapping up and adjournment. Is that all right? All right, the last question is, will the cost of education ever be at an affordable fee?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that community college tuition was zero here at Maricopa, before my time, certainly. What we've noticed, whether it's in the K-12, the post-secondary world, is that the people we elect in higher offices than ours have not had the respect for education that existed when I was in my educational prime. And that's been a problem for us. We went from 25% of our budget here at Maricopa being supplied by the state of Arizona to now nothing. That's an example, but it is only an example of many issues that are similar to that we have to work with. We need to make sure that we maintain the quality of the education that we provide. To sacrifice that is doing a disservice to those that need us. So we do have to make sure that we keep that level of performance in our district. And if it takes additional costs of tuition and taxes, then sometimes that's a tough decision, but we have to make sure that we're still offering the programs and the quality of those programs that those students need. We work very hard nationally at the legislative level in Washington, D.C. to make sure that funding sources for students are still available, that they're meeting the growth in the costs that we deal with. But we need to make sure that we provide all the services and all the funding possibilities that we can to make sure that the end result that a student comes to us with is met and their future is better for it.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
Will it ever be affordable? I like to think that we can't afford a lack of education. And in my class, I always tell students that education is not just what you get in the brick and mortar and in the classroom. Education often are the experiences we gain. And you can gain some of those experiences not just here at the college, but abroad. And we're fortunate here at the Maricopa County Community College to have a fascinating, a wonderful study abroad program. I know because I did it. I studied abroad using the Maricopa County Community College District with my 13-year-old son at the time and my 15-year-old daughter. And we were able to spend 6 weeks in China. So it wasn't just the actual, you're in the classroom, it's the experiences you gain with the clubs, with being involved in community activism. It's the experience you gain through the CTE, through the career programs that you have here. When you do internships, I always promote internships. So when we talk about can education ever be affordable, I don't think it's as black and white as that. I think it's a whole lot more gray than that. And I think a lack of education is something we cannot afford.
Thank you. Dr. Thorpe.
Well, as it has been indicated, higher education, and particularly community colleges, used to be very affordable and in many, many states free. But that was a day when the public and policymakers viewed education as a public good, something that made our society better. Somewhere along the way, it became a private benefit, and that changed the thinking about who should pay for it and shifted the burden to students. So I think we need to counter all of the noise out there now about high student debt and not getting return on your investment, and you don't need to go to college, and so on. That is sending the wrong message to, particularly to young people. That said, there are things that the community colleges can do to ensure that the colleges are as affordable as possible for students, such as the initiative right now regarding open educational resources. We know that in many instances, the textbooks cost more than the tuition does. So things that we can do to reduce the cost of textbooks makes a huge difference for students, as well as making sure that students are well informed about financial aid opportunities that are available for them, and continuing to support the Maricopa Foundation and being as aggressive as they can be in finding scholarship opportunities for our students.
Thank you. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Well, as a former legislative council attorney, I think the Arizona Constitution means what it says in terms of affordability of higher education. And our elected officials need to remember that as a guiding principle, which should, again, lead us to form coalitions of local and state leaders to, again, reinvest into the educational system. And on a national level, we've had a lot of discussion about the importance of community colleges and about them being free. Unfortunately, it's gotten lost in all the hype and anger in DC. I'm hoping that will change so that, again, on a federal level, it's important that we unite on the affordability of education, because really our strength as a country depends on it. You know, our education system should be both affordable and excellent. It's not one or the other, it's both. And I think everything that my colleagues up here have mentioned tonight are important contributors to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with you, Mr. Kavanaugh, and this is the fun lightning round. I hope it's fun. And we want to run the table back and forth with answers to these questions. So the questions I pose will apply to each of our candidates. Would you rather win an Olympic medal, an Academy Award, or the Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh, Academy Award.
Dr. Thor?
With a name like Thor, it has to be the Nobel Peace Prize out of Stockholm.
Olympic medal.
Olympic medal.
Cake or pie?
Neither on my diet.
Cake.
Pie.
Pie.
Who's your celebrity crush?
Celebrity crush. Jimmy Carter.
Do they have to be living?
Living or dead?
Jimmy Carter.
Elvis Presley.
This is terrible. Marissa Tomei, because she looks like my wife.
How am I supposed to top that? I would say Ronald Reagan,
What's your favorite ice cream?
maple nut.
Dairy free.
Not on my diet either, so.
Yeah, dairy free.
Dairy-free.
Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant.
Oh.
And battle weary?
This is a really tough question, but I'd say pecan.
Peach.
Would you rather live for a week in the past or the future?
Future.
Yeah, the future.
Definitely the past.
Future.
And the final question, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Really, so many. I think being success in governance has been probably my most praised accomplishment.
My family. My family is my heart and soul, and sticking with me for 15 years. The deployments are really rough on families, and we were able to come together and make it work. That's definitely my pride and joy.
My son and my daughter, both of whom have dedicated their careers to the community colleges as well.
Probably being named Mesa's Man of the Year this year because of all the work I've done throughout all the years.
Well deserved, thank you. Now, starting with you, Mr. Kavanaugh, each of you have 2 minutes for your closing comments.
Well, thank you very much for the forum tonight. These are great questions, even the pie question. But I have a true passion for public service and governance. And for the last 16 and a half years, I've helped govern a $1 billion public organization through good times and bad. And particularly over the last 8 years, I was able to help forge consensus on our city council, again, through challenging times. It's very rare that a city council can find a unanimous vote on every policy issue over 8 years. And I hope to bring that experience to the governing board here at the community colleges, because also during the past 20 years, I've really come to understand the value and importance of the community colleges to my community, to the Valley, and I'd like to lend my experience and expertise to that task. So thank you.
Thank you. Doctor?
The Maricopa Community Colleges are one of the premier college districts of the country, and I want to help them stay that way. And I know from personal experience that these colleges change people's lives, and I want to ensure that student success stays our #1 priority. I have, for 40 years, watched governing boards. Some of them have been very good. Some of them have been very dysfunctional. I've learned a lot from both. And I believe that my learning curve will be not very steep and that I should be able to hit the ground running. I'm proud to have the enthusiastic endorsement of the Maricopa Community College Faculty Association, PAC, as well as many current and former elected officials, community leaders, members of business and industry, and I want to take all of that support and build on it to make an even stronger Maricopa Community Colleges.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
I am a champion of our education system, the American education system. Yeah, that's true. I stand up and I believe this is the greatest education system in the world. And I will argue and debate that with anybody. And you know why? Because I use my wife as a great example. My wife was a teenage mom, okay? High school dropout. Dropped out of high, never graduated from high school. And then she got a flyer when she was 19 years old about nursing assistant program over at Mesa Community College. And she attended. Graduated there, went off to ASU, got her nursing degree at ASU. Then she went from there, she went over to U of A College of Medicine. She graduated MD, went to residency school right here at Good Sam, obstetrician gynecologist. Today, she is the associate dean at the University of Arizona College of Medicine right here in downtown. Teenage mom, single mom, high school dropout, only in America. And you know where she got her start? At the community college, through a great trade program, which I always advocate. I'm a champion of. I will continue to champion that. It's where I got my start. And you know what? I've learned some great lessons at the Tempe Union High School District. We've done some great things in the last 4 years. I want to take all those successes and all the things that I've learned there and bring them here and do what I can to advocate, to help our community college system. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you support me this election day.
You know,
Mr. Stark.
the last 6 years on this board and the previous 14 in the K-12 world have been some of the most satisfying times of my life. I don't have a family, and I don't have any kids. I am getting married here for the first time coming up, which is going to be unique. But I know that we have an outstanding group of people in this district, from faculty members to support staff to administration. It takes that team to make this as good an institution as it really is, and I'm proud to be part of it. I know that many of you in the audience are part of the institution and are just as proud of it as well. We know we have challenges. That's why we do what we do. We don't get financially reimbursed for this. We don't do it for that purpose, obviously. But we do have the reasons for doing so strong in our minds and strong in our faith. So we, as a board, whoever will be here in January, will always have, I hope, the student success in the back of their minds. That's the reason we're here. We are also in politics, and I urge all of you to take your voting seriously. Make sure that you identify those individuals and those issues that you feel strongly about and make that known on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd be so kind to give our august panel a round of applause for their time, talent, and contributions, it'd be deeply appreciated. I'd like to say thanks to Lawrence Robinson and also the staff at the Center for Civic Participation. I'd like to thank Dr. Sherry Olson, South Mountain Community College, for hosting this event. Thank you very much, Doctor. I'd like to thank MCTV. Give them a round of applause. These folks do a wonderful job. Again, I'd like to thank the candidates for their dedication and time, those people who could be here and those who have not been able to attend. And I'd also like to thank each and every one of you who will be making a critical decision about who will be on the Maricopa County Governing Board to manage this, one of the most dynamic and largest community college systems in the world that provides services to over 250,000 students from high school to age 80. So please give yourself a hand and thank you for your time. And we want to let you know that the next forum is going to be at Mesa Community College on next Thursday. So check your local website for the community college system, and we invite you to attend. Give yourself a round of applause and thank you.